The house of their dreams. It was a bright Saturday morning when Daniel and his family got into their old silver car. The air smelled like summer, warm, soft, full of hope. His wife, Sarah, sat beside him, and their little daughter, Emma, was singing happily in the back seat. They were driving to see a house, not just any house, but maybe the house. For months, Daniel had been searching for the perfect place where they could finally settle down. They had been living in a small apartment in the city, always dreaming about having a yard, a garden, and a home where Emma could grow up surrounded by trees and sunshine. Daniel had been saving money for years. He worked long hours at his job in construction, sometimes even on weekends. There were days when he came home exhausted, but when he looked at his wife and daughter, he felt it was all worth it. Every late night, every tired morning, all for them, for their future. When they arrived, the house stood on a quiet street outside the city. It was not big or fancy, just a lovely white house with green shutters, a wooden porch, and flowers growing near the windows. The sound of birds filled the air, and a soft breeze moved through the tall trees behind the garden. Emma ran toward the front yard with her little laugh echoing around. "Daddy, look, there's a swing!" she shouted, pointing to an old swing hanging from a tree. Sarah smiled. "It's beautiful, isn't it?" she whispered. Daniel nodded slowly. For a moment, he just stood there, taking in the view, the sunlight on the grass, the small path leading to the door, the gentle quietness that surrounded everything. It felt peaceful. It felt like home. The real estate agent, a kind woman with short brown hair, greeted them and opened the door. The inside smelled of fresh paint and clean wood. There were 3 bedrooms, a big living room, and a small kitchen that looked out over the garden. Sarah's eyes sparkled as she looked around. "I can imagine cooking here," she said softly, "and Emma playing outside while we eat breakfast together." Daniel smiled, imagining it too. The mornings filled with laughter, the evenings spent watching movies, the quiet nights with the sound of rain on the roof. They explored every corner of the house. Emma ran from room to room, her small footsteps echoing through the empty hallways. "This one's mine," she said proudly, when she found the smallest bedroom, even though no one told her to choose. Daniel and Sarah laughed. For them, seeing her so happy meant everything. When they stepped outside again, the agent asked politely, "So, what do you think?" Daniel looked at his wife. Sarah nodded. Her eyes said everything. She loved it. He took a deep breath and said, "We'll take it." The agent smiled warmly. "Congratulations, Mr. and Mrs. Thompson. This house will make a wonderful home." At that moment, Daniel felt something deep inside, a mix of joy, relief, and pride. Years of hard work, saving, dreaming, and finally, it was happening. The next few weeks were full of excitement. They packed boxes, sold old furniture, and said goodbye to their small apartment. Emma drew pictures on the boxes, hearts, flowers, and a smiling sun. Moving day finally came. The car was full of their things, and the road ahead felt like a new beginning. When they arrived, the sky was painted with soft orange light from the sunset. Daniel carried boxes into the house while Sarah set up the kitchen and Emma decorated her new room with drawings and stuffed animals. When the last box was unpacked, they all sat together on the living room floor with pizza and soda. There was no furniture yet, just laughter, tired smiles, and the feeling of something special starting. "Daddy," Emma said suddenly, looking at the empty walls, "it feels like home already." Daniel's heart melted. "It is, sweetheart," he said softly. "It really is." They slept that night on mattresses in the living room. Through the open window came the sound of crickets and a light wind. Sarah fell asleep first, holding Emma's hand. Daniel stayed awake for a few more minutes, looking around. He remembered the long road it took to reach this point, the struggles, the saving, the moments when he almost gave up. But now, everything was worth it. He whispered quietly into the night, We made it. The following morning, sunlight filled the house. Emma ran outside to the swing, laughing as she went higher and higher. Sarah was watering flowers by the porch, her hair shining in the sun. Daniel stood on the steps, a cup of coffee in his hand, just watching them. This was his dream. Not fame, not luxury. Just this: peace, love, and a home full of warmth. Every corner of the house began to fill with memories. Emma's drawings on the fridge, Sarah's favorite books on the shelves, Daniel's tools in the garage. In the evenings, they would sit on the porch, watching the sky turn pink and purple as the sun went down. Sometimes they didn't even talk. They just sat there together, happy in the silence. One evening, Sarah looked at him and said, "You've given us everything we ever wanted." Daniel smiled. "No," he said, "we built it together." And as the stars began to appear above their little white house, Daniel felt something he hadn't felt in years: complete peace. Because for the first time, he wasn't just chasing a dream. He was living it.